Om Shanti. Remembering my life with Brahma Baba through the many forms. I came in 1974 to Brahma Kumaris and met Bapdada the first time in the History Hall in Pandit Bhavan, and there were maybe 50 or 60 of us. It was a very small group. We were very close to Bapdada physically, and it was really like a little family hidden away from the eyes of the world. And there, whatever I had learned about God and how He speaks to us through His instrument, Brahma Baba, and since the 18th of January of 1969, He has been coming through the physical form of Dadi Hirde Mohini, and who we also call affectionately Dadi Gulzar. And I think it was at least every year and sometimes twice a year that I would come to Madhuban for a month or a month and a half. Somehow it was always a fairly long time. And in the early days, we would meet Bapdada personally, and Baba would speak to us at length. And I remember many times we would stay the whole night sitting with Baba and the group. But the group was always getting larger, and then the meditation hall was built, and maybe 700 could fit there quite tightly, sitting on the floor. And we were young then, so we could. It was very beautiful, very intimate. Dadi Prakash Mani would always be sitting next to Bapdada and Didi Manmohini on the other side. So it was really the beautiful family experience and the intense spiritual, mystical energy of the light and power of God that was there, all combined. And then time went by, Om Shanti Bhavan was built, and the stage was quite large, so we were a little further away from Baba, but still we experienced and enjoyed the personal meetings, and Baba told me so many things which after many years became realities, and some of them are still yet to come. These are experiences that I keep in my heart, and these days that we speak of as the confluence age are superimposed upon the world as we know it. Then, as time went by, the Brahma Kumaris gathering became very large, and for quite some time, several years, we have been meeting in Shantivan in the Universal Peace Hall, and I think maximum 30,000 can come there. The stage is very large, and in the early years it was still quite intimate, and then later it became more and more orchestrated. And yet, in spite of the increasing numbers and the increasing physical distance, but the most important part of one's experience with Bapdada is your stage of consciousness. I am very fortunate to have been very close to Dadi Janki since the very beginning of my time with the Brahma Kumaris, and so she had a special characteristic of being able to enable us to know Baba through the physical form of Brahma Baba. And one very extraordinary thing that I always experienced is that when you're connected, mentally connected with God, he would even come through the physical portrait of Brahma Baba. Because the important thing to understand is who is God and what is God like. God has always been thought of as indefinable, mysterious, and this is because he is incorporeal, a soul who doesn't have a body of his own. All of us have our own bodies and we express ourselves through those, so we know each other through the expression, through our bodies, on our faces, our personalities and everything. But God, you have to know him directly through the mind, and for that we would experience, especially when Baba would come through Dadi Hirde Mohini, and you could really see that she, though of course she went in trance, and her being would fade and disappear, and the complex being, the combination of the Avyakt form of Brahma Baba and the incorporeal Shiv Baba, you could see that. Part of our practice and study is to develop the third eye, and the third eye is a form of perception where you can actually see the being of God and the subtle form of Brahma Baba, because your eye, when you develop this, is able to perceive what you cannot see with just a material eye, normal everyday eye. And so this is what happens with yoga. You start to be able to perceive and feel and understand and relate to and interact with God in a way that was never possible before. And so whenever Baba would come through Dadi Gulzar, you would really have the opportunity to be the student. The first part of the session was always an hour, 2 hours, Baba, the teacher, speaking to us about a particular aspect of our spiritual knowledge and spiritual practice. And after that, the setup would change slightly, and Baba would engage in interaction with the dadis on stage and with some of us who would also come on stage, and with the larger gathering. It would sometimes be group-wise, sometimes according to the professional groups. There were many people who would come from foreign countries, and so I was for many years from United States. Initially it was England, then Germany, then Canada. Now I'm back in Germany, and for quite some time I had the opportunity to stay in Madhaban in Mount Abu, and so I would participate in these meetings every time. In the beginning it was every other day when I first came in the early 70s. Then it became every 3 days, every 4 days, every week, 2 weeks. And then the meetings became more formal and the timings more formalized, and groups would come according to the schedule. And this is inevitable. But I think what is my greatest fortune is I was able to experience these early days when everything was pretty much unknown. the gathering of Brahma Kumaris was just a few thousand, and there were a few hundred centers. So being part of the early days leaves a very powerful imprint on the heart, because the experience of the company of God and the company of those who are with God is something extraordinary. And those days are gone. Now Bapdada is not speaking through the form of Dadi Gulzar anymore, because she has reached an age and level of health where it's no longer possible. But during that time when we would meet with Baba, the energy in the hall was so intense, and the light, you could see, you could feel the spiritual light that filled the whole place. And so he taught us how to shift into what we call the Avyakt stage. Now, sometimes it is called the angelic stage. So when a person practices yoga, studies spiritual knowledge very deeply, very intensively, slowly you're able to build a stage of consciousness where you can perceive the subtle aspects. Because along with our physical body, there is also the subtle body, the body of light. And so we learned how to access that. And Baba would also be in his body of light, and there would be many times where you could be on that same level, because the energy in the room that Baba dispensed pulled everyone into this angelic form, or Avyakt stage as we call it. And you would be at the end of the evening so filled with that light and that power, and it would continue for many days. And all of these things are deeply imprinted in the memory, in the subconscious, in the heart, in the soul, in the mind. And of course, from about the mid-80s, we began to videotape this, but before that there was just a few photographs, not much more. So now we live in a very different age where everything is digital and technological, and it has enabled us, I think, to understand communication at a much more subtle level, because we're used to Bluetooth, internet, all of that, and this is called artificial intelligence, and it mimics intelligence. And we also have learned to adjust our minds to go into a mentality that's very pure, very focused, and then it changes your perception so that you're able to see and to feel and to know that God is real as any human being, but yet not a human being. And it is so difficult for a regular person to understand this, because understanding comes more with experience. But Baba pulled us into that experience. So the experience would amplify the understanding, and the understanding would amplify the experience. And every so often you would just be so amazed to be able to realize that maybe after so many births of searching for truth, searching for God, searching for wisdom, without really expecting to find it, but yet the time comes when God becomes manifest, and somehow I became one of those who was called and who answered the call and who was able to spend many, many years interacting with incorporeal God through the physical medium of Brahma Baba and then the medium of Avyakt Bapdada through Dadi Hirde Mohini. And this is an extraordinary thing. I think nowadays it's quite hard for people to imagine that such a thing was there, but it was. And there were so many of us all in one thought, in one feeling, in one vibration. And the energy of the yoga, one thing was the energy that Bapdada would spread into the room, but the other was the energy of the yoga of all of us. And in the early days, we would sit for 3 or 4 hours of intense tapasya, focused yoga meditation, and invoke the presence of Bapdada, and this also built a very, very powerful atmosphere, so full of light, so full of purity and deep silence. And I noticed that when the group became very large, then this was no longer possible, because I think that the larger group of people were not necessarily taught to have yoga at that level. So I was very lucky to be among those who were in the very small groups at the beginning. I experienced so much attention and time with Didi Manmohini, who was an extraordinary yogi, and Dadi Prakashmani and some of the other dadis, all of whom were great yogis, all of whom were very close to Baba. And one of the things that a few people experienced was visionary experiences, mystical experiences, where you would enter into a different level of consciousness, a higher space of consciousness, where you would feel full of light, where you would be really close to God. You could feel the love of God streaming into your being, and you could interact with God in this state. And really, it's a beautiful thing that stays imprinted on the soul, I think, for all time. The knowledge of spirituality is vast, and we experience the study of the murlis, the discourses that Baba would give, that Shiv Baba would give through Brahma Baba, and the Avyakt murlis, the murlis that Baba would give through Dadi Hirde Mohini, in this combined form that we call Avyakt Bapdada, where Shiv Baba and Brahma Baba would become one and speak to us. There, the study came onto a completely subtle level, and I think one of the things that he prepared us for was the present time. Now, the whole world is under lockdown at different levels. The place where I am, there's curfew, you're not allowed to go out, all the shops are shut except the very essential ones, and you can just go out for a short walk, and you have to be by yourself. And I think that the training that we had and the experience of always feeling that if you had God accessible to you through the medium of Avyakt Bapdada through the medium of Dadi Hirde Mohini, but we learned that you can experience that you are with God at all times. And I remember one time Bapdada said to me, you know, I'm always with you. And I thought, okay, I'm going to really hold you to that. And so I always have the experience of being never alone, never far, and this experience of living at the mental level in company with God, in company with His teachings, because a person carries with themselves their qualities, their characteristics, their wisdom. So when you are with God, then you are also with His knowledge, His wisdom, His beauty, His love, and His power. There were occasions when I would be sitting in the hall and all of a sudden I would feel myself elevated to a very high stage of consciousness, and it was almost as if the regular everyday reality was peeled away, like you peel a page away, and behind that was a divine reality that I could feel and see, and this gave me a sense of the immense power of God that is behind the loving, beautiful and accessible form that He showed to us as we interacted with Bapdada through his medium of Brahma Baba and the medium of Avyakt Bapdada through Dadi Hirde Mohini. And Dadi was a very deep yogi. She was tremendously introverted, Dadi Hirde Mohini, and very, very beautiful, quiet soul. And I had quite a lot of interaction with her, and it was very, very interesting to see how she is when Baba is coming through her, and how she is when she's just herself, and always in deep connection with Bapdada. She's a trance medium and a trance messenger, so this is a very special gift that she has, and each and every one of us has our own specialities and gifts that God has given us, and we must recognize those and use them to let people come closer to God in whatever way we can. Because Baba always would fill us with so much love, so much power, so much wisdom, and also he would say, I'm giving this not just for you, but you must become transmitters, receive and transmit whatever you have received. And also Baba would say to us, you must become like walking, moving lighthouses. You must be so close to me that when people see you, they will see me. And in fact, this was another thing that Baba had said to me personally, that when people look at you, they will be able to see the Father. And so when he says something like this, it means it's really important to be so connected that just the basic self vanishes and you become like a mirror. So he told us so many ways to reflect the beauty of God, to reflect what we've experienced, to reflect what we feel about Him, and to reflect this a feeling of confidence and security that no matter what happens, I'm aware of being the eternal, immortal soul. And whatever happens, I will always be a being who exists forever. There are many things that happen in this world, and nowadays the world is a world of upset, drama, trauma, insecurity. Nobody knows what's going to happen next, and so some people are having a very hard time with that. But the gift that Baba had given us, that I'm always with you, just be with me in your mind. And ask this question of yourself: where are you? Are you where your body is, or are you where your mind is? And of course, you are where your mind is. And so Baba taught us to keep our mind with God, and to be detached observers, to see what's going on, but always keep this company, this presence, this feeling God is with me, in my heart, beside me. His teachings are with me, His powers and qualities are with me. The family that He created, such a beautiful family, I am part of that family. Such an extraordinary university where we learn knowledge and wisdom that no one else has any idea about, and it prepares us to be a high quality human being for many, many births. And so this is a great wonder that God comes in a very simple form. We are also in our very simple form. And quietly, secretly, we are able to just be with Him and enjoy the wonder and the beauty of this creation that He is creating, this foundation of a new world, a new civilization. And it is so beautiful to be part of that. So thank you very much, and Om Shanti.